Hello, Astro friends. Melanie here with the Astro Weather for the week starting today, April 8th, and going until April 14th, 2025. And of course, the big event this week is the full moon on the 12th, the first full moon in spring, and also the full moon before Easter. So typically, Easter is on the Sunday after the first full moon in spring. And you might wonder, why is Easter not already on the 13th? It's typically Easter is a Sunday, right? But the full moon will be actually on the 13th, on that Sunday, the 13th in Europe, and I guess Rome is what matters here. So that's why Easter will be on the 20th. In this case, more rare, right? But this is also an Easter with the in Taurus, right, rather than in Aries. And Taurus will start on the 19th, Easter on the 20th. But let's go back to this week. So yes, the full moon is the big news, and the full moon also brings several changes. Venus goes out of retrograde. Venus has been retrograde since March 1st, and now is the time when Venus changes her course. She is the morning star, and she goes from Earth perspective direct forward in the zodiac again, starting from end of Pisces and then eventually going into Aries on the 30th of April until early June, but Venus has been for a very long time in Pisces and also Aries, and now is a time where Venus turns around. Mercury has already turned around yesterday, the 7th. Both Venus and retro, I'm still a bit retrofied. So both Venus and Mercury have gone retro almost in the same degrees in the zodiac, covered almost the same terrain in the zodiac. Super rare, and also at the same time, right? Almost simultaneously. What's going on with that? So I found personally in the last while, with this Venus Mercury stationary end of Pisces, that a lot of magical things happen, lots of reconnections, especially with women, friends, and also bring us back to earlier times, right? So sometimes we haven't seen each other with some people in years and decades. Unbelievable and beautiful from the Pisces perspective, that time doesn't really matter. It's just a dimension. Connection matters, love matters, and all of this came about here. And at the same time, Venus retro also has been, again, like each Venus retrograde every 1.5 years, the incentive to come into our own inner self-love, to meet the love goddess from within. And now as Venus is in the second part of her retro and almost going direct, that has a Taurus undertone. Venus retro starts with the Libra undertone before Venus meets the Sun, halfway through. And the Libra undertone is often related to other people, to comparing ourselves, to old relationship patterns, to the Venus Taurus undertone of the second half, and how Venus now continues as a morning star. That, and even going into Taurus season, right? That has to do with what we value and what we enjoy, and leading from there rather than leading from how can I please them, what about them, how do they feel or think about me, how am I being perceived by them. This all starts with you and starts from within. That's very much Venus. And of course, it starts from the Pisces perspective, that Venus is exalted. So it's beyond personal self-love. It's about universal love that we are surrounded by, and that love just is the web, and the cosmic web of the universe is is built out of love. So if you tap into that, so what can go wrong? Little things don't really matter so much. There's no mistake, so to say. I might sound a little bit idealistic, but this is the place to start with and to dwell in more often, especially in our world, in our Western modern world, where Virgo rules much more than Pisces, I would say. And Pisces is also where the energy is now so strongly gravitating towards end of Pisces. Only the south node is in Virgo. And where Venus stations, where Mercury has gone forward, where Saturn is, where the north node, and Neptune is barely over here in Aries. But all of this is going on in Pisces, and this is a big convergence where everything is coming together and being absorbed also by the field of love, while at the same time they're also releasing, forgiving, having compassion, and allowing things to run their course and to be washed out, right? Especially as I've been saying for a while, especially phenomena of the ending the now outgoing Pisces age, right? So that would have to do with themes like all the suffering, all the codependencies, all the addictions, all these so experiences of victimhood, experiences of collective, uh, not basically the individual doesn't matter. It's all about the collective, and we've had a lot of that. Different parts of the world more than others, but definitely one of the signatures of the Pisces age. I mean, especially the suffering, and suffering in the name of religion, in the name of ideology, and all of that, and also delusion and deception. And of course, nowadays, still a big factor, especially through the media, also ruled by Pisces. So, all of this is coming up to leave the system, basically. And on that note, yes, Mercury, Venus, and also Saturn. So, Saturn and the North Node, they come together on just after the full moon on April 14th. April 14th, that happens once. Well, how often does that happen? Saturn has a 29-year cycle, and nodes have an 18.5-year cycle. So you do the math in this case. I would say, yeah, every few years, right? So not very often. But now Saturn and the North Node, end of Pisces. And so where does that leave us? So this is also about karma, double karma theme, right? Saturn already being a karma planet, showing us where, guiding us and teaching us and showing us the effects of our actions or inactions, right? And the North Node rather giving us an incentive, right? A sign here is where an energy wants to support you, right? So while it's a bit contradictory, right? Which Pisces likes to be. Why? Because Saturn says less is more, and the North Node says, yeah, more is better. More um, of the quality stuff of Pisces, right? More of the higher vibration, so to say, right? So connection, wonderful, while at the same time also healing. So this is also the Saturn caveat here, right? Also having good boundaries where needed, and having boundaries that are made out of compassion, right? So not out of defense or the flow is still important. The flow of energy is super important. And of course, we see a lot of that now also in economy and politics, especially regarding tariffs. And yeah, so all these Virgo attempts to solve problems, right? To be self sufficient and do the math and also retaliate and all this thing, that all of that disrupts the flow, and eventually things don't get better. Like even with Saturn, Neptune uh, together, they come together in July. So one of the phenomena on an economic level of Saturn and Neptune can be also economic problems through inflation, right? So with Neptune, inflationary energy, and Saturn is like, hey, this doesn't work, right? So there's way too much inflation going on, and this gets out of control, right? So everybody suffers. We don't want to retract to that quality of Pisces, like even on economic level, we need more connection and unity and flow. And so question is how to get to that place. But we can all start within, doing our share, changing our vibration, not going into us and them, into all of that division, which can also come from the Gemini side. And and compartmentalizing from the Virgo side, right? But rather into what would feel so much better, what would be a much a much more spiritual approach. How can we transcend this problem rather than solve it with on the same dimension, right? And so what's coming up also with the full moon is I want to say one more thing regarding trade wars. Also, Mars is now in the last week of Pisces. Mars is a warrior energy, and both Canada and United States are Cancer countries. So there is an expression, not that it was predictable or it needed to happen this way, but it is an expression of that, sadly, that Mars in Cancer is like a fight within the family, is a war within the family. And and especially two Cancer countries, right? So Mars will leave Cancer on April 17th. So let's see where that takes us in this whole saga. And go into Leo. Then Mars will be fully in Leo, go all the way through this time until June 17th, fully 2 months. And more about that next week. And back to this week and back to the full moon, which, as you see here, right, a full moon in late Libra opposes the Sun and Chiron, late Aries. So it will be also the day of the year when the Sun comes together and with Chiron and passes Chiron. And so it's also about, again, this is connected to Mars, of course, right? Mars rules Aries. So this is also the wounds of war and having more consciousness around that and, coming out of that mode that is too belligerent, that is always, fighting oriented and actually competition oriented rather than collaboration, us and them and all this, right? We don't need more of that. And this is where the wounds are. But what heals those wounds? A new approach. Also Aries. So like heals like. What's a better expression of Aries? And brave and bold, new approach, and making the first step in the right direction, not waiting for them, Libra, right? To not being in this constant sitting on the fence and trying to negotiate, but actually boldly stepping out and making a statement and making a move, right? That's Aries. And so the full moon with Chiron, and on the day of the full moon, as I said, Venus comes out of retrograde. So in other words, also, like even in the socio-political realm, Venus retro, of course, has played an important role. And now we are moving forward, and Venus will also come into Aries, where Chiron has been, where Mars rules, right? And let's bring the love goddess in and let her help us move forward in a better way. What else is going on this week? Otherwise, not too much. But I mean, the full moon is a handful. And as I said, or I haven't said, but you can see it here, there's a full moon and it's in T-square with Mars, right? So it definitely, the whole Mars factor and Aries factor plays a really important role in this full moon. At the same time, the moon is holding space here. The only celestial body outside of this, 180-degree bowl shape, right? So it is a basket shape in this case, right? So you have a handle here, and you have here the bowl. So this is, you can also pick up the energy from the Libra moon, and Libra moon wants peace, of course, needs peace, needs fairness, balance, harmony, culture, right? And all of that. So let's celebrate all the above. Then this week we have the moon. Speaking of the moon is now in Virgo and will be since this morning. So today the 8th, right? Since this morning the moon in Virgo all day tomorrow the 9th until Thursday evening, 6:12 p.m. So this is a really nice time to tune in into your own health and wellness practice, into our own rhythms in that regard, into also how can we be of service and how can this also support us and bring out our skills and and it's all about assistance, support, making the world a better place, also humility, and and an appreciation of the so-called small things, right? So there's lots of that now going on, of course, in spring. All the blossoms, everything is in becoming, everything is coming alive, and so much to appreciate, small and big. Then we have the moon going into Libra for the full moon, right? Starting that Libra gibbous moon before the fullness will start on the 10th and be on the 11th. On the 11th, the moon will be in Libra on the 12th, all day on the 12th until the 13th in the afternoon. In the morning, 6:54 a.m. So Libra moon, Libra full moon. So again, relationships, right? So that is also naturally the connection with Venus, the ruler of the ruling planet of Libra, coming out of retrograde, right? So how do we now carry forward this journey of Venus retrograde? How do we show up in relationships? This is for ourselves, for our partners, but in authentic ways, Aries, and in really compatible ways, and such. Then the moon goes into Scorpio on the 13th, as I said in the morning. We'll meet Lilith right away. So this is also the lunar initiation of Lilith, right? Since Lilith entered Scorpio on the 27th, just before the last new moon, which was a partial solar eclipse on the 29th, Lilith entered Scorpio to be in Scorpio until winter solstice, almost 20th of December. And we had a real cool parlor last week about Lilith in Scorpio and a few sessions with clients. So that Lilith in Scorpio theme has come up in many ways, in magical ways, which Lilith also is. So how do we shed layers, right? We drew a connection in our group between Lilith in Scorpio and the year of the snake and the year of the wood snake, the yin wood snake. Both in combination is about shedding old layers, transforming and renewing. And this is also what this year is very much about. So she is a midwife for the new, but also death doula for the old. And that means old means conditioning. Lilith in Scorpio, Lilith wherever she is, helps us come back to our inner wild. In other words, to the unconditioned. Before we were conditioned by society, by teachers, by parents, by our environment, right? So who are we in our authentic self? All of that is what Lilith helps us with, and that can look quite provocative at times or very liberating, right? So Lilith is on our side, and the moon initiates Lilith on the 13th. Well, 13, interesting number also, right? So it's also the number of the moon. There are 13 moons of the year, 13 new moons or full moons per year. I haven't looked up exactly whether it's full moons or new moons this year, but typically one of them is 13 rather than the 12th. And so this will be can be a beautiful day, the 13th, if you want to do a Lilith initiation ceremony, right? And gather also with others, with like-minded people. That can be very powerful because Lilith and the moon already squares Pluto in Aquarius, and Lilith will square Pluto with that new moon that we will have on the 27th of April. That'll be a real powerhouse of a new moon, I'm telling you. And speaking of 27th, so 28th Canadian federal elections, I want to write this article about the federal elections, the candidates, the chart of Canada, the election chart. Just have a little patience, please. I've been super busy lately, but it's on my radar and gotta come out. And the right time will present. Then yeah, so the 13th, as I said, the post full moon day with Scorpio moon and Lilith. And on the 14th, still the moon in Scorpio. In this case, yeah, very watery energy. Scorpio is also water sign. It's more about depth. It's like deep diving. It's underground waters and ponds and lakes. And we have then on the 14th, as at the same time, the North Node in Pisces meets Saturn, as I described before. Then this week is transition in the Aries season from Central Aries, which started on the 31st of March and goes until the 9th of April. Then from the 9th, 10th, so this year already on the 9th, I would say, we are moving into the third decanate of Aries that goes until the 19th when the Sun enters Taurus. And this decanate, this last 10-degree time phase, has a Sag undertone. So Sagittarius and Aries in combination is a lot about independence. It's about my path, my truth, my journey. So all of that comes out very strongly and is also part of that full moon. And of course, in combination and contrast and complementariness with Libra, which is very other oriented, which is very relationship oriented. How can we bring these two sides together? From that angle, also super relevant. And yeah, that's it for the week. Here's another last glimpse at the Libra Aries first spring full moon, also called the pink moon, as you see, right? So much going on here from end of Pisces over to Aries with Sun and Chiron meet. Opposite moon, end of Libra, will eventually on the 13th, the day after, meet Lilith. And then Mars here, end of Cancer, between Sun and Moon. So definitely a catalyst. So maybe one more word about this Mars catalyst. And yeah, end of Cancer has a Pisces undertone. So that's that connection with a Piscean theme. How can we pursue from a Mars perspective, right? Pursue the fact and be proactive, call it that way. Be proactive about the fact that we are all human family. Hey, so and maybe literally also reconnect with family bonds, right? So bonds is of course also Pisces, and yeah, and be inclusive and be welcoming, right? So this is also the welcoming point of Cancer, Leo, of warm energy, a caring energy. We care for another, and we are passionate about this. So how can we give that a bit more energy? Come on, guys. And we can do this. And yeah, so start from within, start in ourselves, contribute that to society. That's my message for the week. Wishing you a beautiful week and see you in a session, or you can find me here again on this channel next week after the full moon. Bye.